That's too funny.
All right. As you guys may be aware, Palestinian and Israeli forces have been volleying missiles at each other for 11 days, killing more than 250 people. They just ceased fire on Friday. Now, many celebs have been posting support for Palestine. Well, a Jewish organization posted a full-page ad claiming people like Dua Lipa and Gigi Hadid and others were being anti-Semitic. Well, Dua Lipa clapped back saying, I stand in solidarity with all oppressed people and reject all forms of racism. So my question to you guys, what would your response have been? Let's start with Robbie Rock.
I would start with no response. I would remove myself from the echo chamber and reevaluate the information upon which my viewpoint is based.
All right, Johnny Storm.
In my Mariah Carey voice, why are you so obsessed with me?
Why are you so obsessed? And Lizzie, what would you have said?
I'm calling Dave Chappelle and Trevor Noah. Calling Dave Chappelle and Trevor.
Yo, they would put them in place. Yes. For me, it's straight up Islamophobia. From a bunch of occupiers, right? You can't throw rocks from glass houses. I mean, that's basically what they're doing.
Also, it makes no sense, like especially as it relates to Gigi Hadid and her sister Bella. Their father, Mohammed Hadid, is Palestinian. So of course,
why wouldn't they support, right?
Support of their father, of their father's heritage, of their father's homeland. But I hate that, anytime someone comes out and speaks out against Israel in this conflict, and this conflict has been going on since 1948, beyond our lifetimes, okay? In my entire life, there's been a war in Israel-Palestine. But anytime someone comes out in America at least, and speaks out publicly against Israel and what's going on, all of a sudden they turn into bullies. And all of a sudden we become anti-Semitic. And it's just like, no, that's not the case. Israel is not above reproach. If you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. And that's not to say that, the Palestinians overall are innocent. Like, we know Hamas is not innocent. However, there are people dying and the numbers don't stack up. You have Israel, who has an arsenal that's up to here. In this conflict over the past 11 days, 200
their nuclear power
have died. 200 Palestinians have died, at least 50 of them children. And this is what happens each time this comes up. So don't come at me calling me anti-Semitic, which I'm not, because I'm calling you on your shit. And by the way, you have a leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's a criminal.
Yeah.
Who's a criminal.
Yeah.
So
I thought he was voted out. I don't even know how he's still prime minister. I think anyway. It frustrates me that all the killing and the hatred done in the name of God, right? They're justifying
invisible lines and invisible friends that kill people. We're all human. We all have the same inalienable rights. We all have the same desires. We want to pursue our lives in a way that fulfills us, that brings happiness and purpose to our lives. But that said, I mean, when you have invisible lines and invisible best friends that are causing you to perpetrate hate on others, you have to give up that ideology and you have to be a better human.
I mean, but they're always justifying that it's, God, the name of God is religion and all that stuff. The truth is, it's not even as with most evil things in humanity, it's about power. It's about power and control. One thing, and I read Jacqueline Robinson said this conflict has been going on for centuries. It hasn't been going on for centuries because most people don't realize Israel was created in 1948. And it was built on stolen land from the Palestinians by England and European Jews. And not to mention there was an ethnic cleansing that happened around that time too, where they were trying to get rid of the Palestinians. So we're not talking centuries. It shouldn't. This is in my parents' lifetime, not my grandparents. This was in my parents' lifetime. So that they created Israel. Israel didn't exist prior to 1948. So. Is it really surprising that the Palestinians want to fight for their land and want their land back? And
I think what Jacqueline Robinson is referring to is the conflict between between the two sides.
Between
But yes, Israel didn't exist before 1948,
Muslims and
but there was
Judaism,
conflicts between the Muslims and the Jews
Judaism,
in this area for years before 1948. So
Sure.
when I say conflict has been on my entire lifetime, I'm talking about specifically about the names Israel, Palestine, because if you talk to a lot of Jews, they say that there is no such thing as Palestine. You know, if you talk to a lot of Palestinians, they say there's no such thing as Israel. But this conflict between the two sides, between the two groups of people, has been going on for centuries, for decades.
Sure.
Yes.
But specifically, the Israel didn't exist until 1948. So, anyway.
And as Jack Robinson just pointed out, it's a conflict, you know, for who has the right to the Holy Land. And that goes back centuries.
Yep.
Well, that's it. That
But
all
this is
goes back
still
to who's
stolen
following the
land. I
correct
mean,
Where it
prophet.
started.
Because we're talking about these are Europeans who are occupying. These are not. This is not like it's other Middle Easterners in Israel. These are Europeans who came and occupied Israel and took it over. So it's yes, I get it, but again, you know, there has been conflict between Jews and between Palestinians, but we're talking about specifically Israel, and Israel specifically was a colonization.
With, again, like I said, with this iteration of the conflict, if you will, but it predates 1948. It predates that.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of history there.
Well, whatever it is, they need to stop it. So, and I additionally, so they could put a full-page ad out on me. I support the Palestinians as well. And you know, it's another thing. You know, this is a different era because you know, over the years we have seen on the news. Growing up, I saw on the news that it was all about Hamas doing terrorist attacks and doing all these other things. But when you look on, like, now we have TikTok, we have Facebook, and we have all the videos that are coming out of Palestine as opposed to what's coming out of Israel, you start to realize there's a different side to the story than we've seen our entire lives. And the side is that these are occupiers who are who have taken over the land, and these people just want to live, many of them.
My whole thing is this, because the initial question was for this quick fire, what would you do if someone
we did
took
go a
an
little
ad?
off. Sorry,
And,
Micah.
and,
I know you're waiting.
and again, you know, if I'm Dua Lipa, I'm like, you know what, Chris Cross, you can get the finger. Keep my name out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Keep my name out of your ad. You have bigger issues than me, Elizabeth Newman, or Dua Lipa calling you out on your shit in a tweet.
Yes.
If that's the only issue, then it wouldn't be a war. There wouldn't be bombs launching left and right all over the place. So don't worry about me. Worry about your shit at home. Worry about that.
Tell them, Liz.
Yeah.
All right. Now it's time to get to some fun. We gotta switch gears. I actually wasn't expecting that one to be so intense. All right. It's movie time.